It's the Barstool Breakdown. Go ahead and give it to me. Breakdown. Let's listen to those guys. Breakdown. What's happening at Barstool this week? Breakdown. It's ball time. It's ball time. It's ball time.
All right, we're here with a very special guest, Mr. Jeff Nadeau. How we doing, brother?
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me. I hope you're both doing well. You know, you and I, me, you, John, we used to communicate once in a while on the Stooley Wednesday show. So, I've kind of been away for a while, but I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. It's good to have you on. I mean, Frankie kind of smirked you on the little intro there. I mean, the host of the Sit Down Crime Pod, who the TikTok
I'm
still
trying.
going crazy.
I'm trying not to talk too much with this voice, dude.
Right.
It's killing me just listening back to my own voice right now with the nasal that I got going on. So I apologize.
Right. And former friend of the Stoolies, like with Stooley Wednesday, Jeff was always in there chopping it up with the boys, and he was frequent with the spaces, and one of those Barstool guys. So when you were employed by Barstool, it's you really mix it up with everybody, and I think a lot of fans enjoy that. Of course, you got people on the other side who are always going to talk their shit, but yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, brother. I guess I'll just start there. The Sit Down Crime. Are you still rolling heavy with the Sit Down Crime Pod, and what really got you into doing that?
I am. Yeah, I'm still rolling. It's getting stronger and stronger. I continue to get new people, new guests, bring people out of the shadows that had never been heard before. And it really took to a point where I never thought it would go. I'm essentially one of the bigger channels or shows in that world. And that world on YouTube is quite big. There's a lot of people that have come out of the woodwork, but I've always really been interested in the mob, organized crime. You watch the films, the Goodfellas, that kind of stuff. And I really just wanted to do it. And I didn't know if it would be successful or not, but I tried it. I just started it and it took off. And now we have a TikTok and I have a YouTube channel. I have actually 2 YouTube channels. I have the show. I have just all sorts of things, interviews I'm doing. So yeah, it's been fun. But I would say movies probably got me into it. Just when I was a kid, watching them, and Sopranos, things like that. And as Frankie knows, I know he's Italian, and any Italian, it's kind of the side of your world that you don't really know a bunch about, right? They're the same maybe type of people as you, but you don't know much about them. So yeah. I just try to tell the stories of these people, try to keep the history alive. And it was an interesting time in history. So I want to tell a story.
I remember we DM'd back and forth for a while when I think my grandpa, he was had some mob stuff going on. And you were like, "Oh, send me the names and blah blah blah. I'll look into it and whatever." I don't know. I don't know if we ever got anywhere with that but I remember you had some big guests coming on at the same time. So it was just it's just cool to chop it up and talk about that stuff because, like you said, my grandpa's talking about stuff he's from back in the day. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. So when someone like you could come in and give a little knowledge on it, it's like, oh shit, that's awesome.
There's actually it's funny you say that. When I was at Barstool, there was a Stooley that came to me and was like, "Hey, I really feel weird asking you this, but I think my dad was in the mafia." And I just knew him as my grandpa, but I'm at the age now where I want to know about him, right? He had passed away, and I looked into him, and he was actually a real high up guy in the Bonanno crime family. And that person, if she, this person sees it, it's a she'll know who I'm talking about. But yeah, you never know kind of who you're related to. So
it's also one of those things getting into the crime family stuff. I mean, going off of that, you truly never really know, unless or someone like you that dives into it more and get more into these lower level families that used to be. I mean, that was America to start, right? A lot of the mob, America was built from the mob to start. So that's just it's crazy. You really don't know your ancestral tree. So that's that's sick that someone reached out and oh yeah, then you could confirm it. So
it's all about combing through documents and indictments and just. I have people, weirdly enough, doing this for so long. I'm doing almost 3 years now that I've actually found people in the street that are in the mob currently that I speak to. They give me nuggets of information. I speak to all sorts of people. So, I mean, it's been fun. I mean, my life has changed a little bit in certain kind of friendships that I've had that they don't really know why I do it or why I'm into it. But it's been good for my life. I've had a good time with it. It's not going to be something I'll do forever, but It's been a fun ride, and it's something that I've found I'm pretty good at, and it's work. So I roll
Yeah,
with it.
100%. Yeah, I get that. I mean, you're talking to two
Yeah.
people who run a Barstool fan show, and that's pretty tough to explain sometimes. So I totally get where you're coming from on that note.
For me, it's more of just I deal with a lot of like people call me and threaten me. They don't put this out. So it's
I swear to God, that was my next question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was literally my next question was, do you ever get like threats or you're like, sorry, go ahead. I want to make sure I ask that one. So you give us the whole background
yeah.
on that stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time it's really lawyers that'll call me. They're like, "Hey, my client, so I show you did. He's not happy with what you said. You included something he didn't want to be out there." A lot of the time they don't really care. But I have had people that have contacted me, people that say they represent these people. I've had people threaten me saying they're going to do something to me. I actually got into a pretty major beef with a big TikTok account that I had found that he was connected to the mafia. This guy, the food boss, and he was very unhappy with a video I did on him. But it's just it's history. I try to just be straightforward, not make things up, just try to come factual. And some people don't want to realize the life they lived at one point, and it is what it is. But I don't really worry about it too much.
I mean, that's the gist of reporting. Like, you're gonna get some splashback and stuff like that because what you're
Of
doing,
course.
you're reporting on history, crime history, which is I think like that's awesome. Like your TikToks, I love the TikToks and stuff that I see from it. I might not be able to tune into every episode, but I mean that is it's a great thing you have going, and so it's just something you've just always been interested in, and you're just like, what, I'm gonna pick up and talk about this.
Yeah, I'm in 20. I always try to come up with something I'm going to do every year, as most people do with like a resolution. And in 2020, it was getting my health in check, losing a bunch of weight. And in 2021, I'd always done sports betting and things like that. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do something different from this and see if I can get taken off the way I've done with sports. And I just kind of went with it. We did it. And I remember the first time the show really took off, I think it was the eighth episode. We did an episode on the real Goodfellas, like the stories behind the film, like the real people, because it's all based on true people.
Sure.
And I remember Dave Portnoy and
Yeah.
Big Cat talked about it at one point. This is when I didn't work at Barstool. This is the first time around when I left. I had started it right after that. And Kirk Minahan mentioned the show. He said it was really good. And really, ever since then, it just kind of took off, and we found a way with it, and now we're here.
I feel like the TikTok is just like the numbers have been insane. And I think it's because a lot of people like you make it digestible the way you put it on the TikTok. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's TikTok's peaks and valleys. There'll be weeks where you'll get every video do 100K plus. Then there'll be days, months where you'll get 20K for 4 or 5 weeks straight. But no, I've had success with it. And what I like about TikTok is I don't just talk about the mafia. I mean, some of my most viewed videos are videos on cartels, different gang members, celebrities that are arrested. I try to just find stories that people maybe don't know about or they see on the news that they need clarification on. And I just try to break that down. Um, it's hard because like someone like Jack Mack, right? Jack Mack has the ability to really kind of go all sorts of ways with his show on TikTok, and he's done a great job. For me, it's hard because some of the subject matter that I'm dealing with is hard to talk about. They will monetize it. They'll take it down. I have like 10 videos that have been violated due to guidelines. So it's hard. The subject matter is tough, but yeah, I've done pretty well. I'm hoping to get to 200,000 by the 1 year mark. So we'll see, but
Right.
we're getting closer.
Yeah, we're gonna have to plug that. It is just the Sit Down Crime Pod on TikTok then.
Yeah, at the Sit Down Crime Pod. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Okay. So yeah, we'll have to throw that in there and make sure you shoot that a follow because what you put out is really truly interesting stuff. I'm probably gonna start. I'm gonna circle back a little here. It's kind of how we usually lead most interviews is like we'll ask people like what got you into Barstool. So were you a fan before you were ever hired, and then what was your hiring story there?
yeah, I mean, I've been following Barstool since they were in Milton. Um, and I really just been a fan. I remember when they went to New York, and I remember just kind of how over the years it got bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
I got hired or got noticed through I want to say it was like around 2018. This was before gambling was legalized. There was a law called PASPA that was passed. This was before that. This is when you were gambling on offshore betting and that was it, or bookie or whatever. And I remember I got in touch with Big Cat. I want to say he had contacted me through he had just knew about my gambling stuff. And I was giving him picks. I would DM him each day with picks that I had. And we won some money. It was a pretty successful winter. And this is when I was posting these videos where I would like scream into the camera. I was like 350 pounds. It was a mess. And one day he said to me, he's like, hey, would you ever want to speak to Dave? I think you're pretty funny. Like, I think you're interesting. You have kind of an it factor. Would you want to ever speak to Dave? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And I didn't hear anything for a while. And then 2 weeks or so later, I got a DM from Dave. It was around this time. I remember it was cold. And I didn't know it was him the first time. I thought it was a fake account because he wasn't verified or anything. Then I looked and I realized it was him. And he's like, hey, do you want to come up to New York one day and maybe we can sit down and talk? And this was when they were at HQ2, which I know you got. That was the first office they were at in New York. So I went up maybe a week or so later. I sat down with Dave. He kind of told me, this is what we plan to do once everything gets legalized. And I remember initially they offered me a contract and they wanted me to move to New York. And I did not want to do that. Because I think one thing about me that a lot of people don't know or realize is I've been doing content for a very long time, particularly in the sports betting world. And anybody that's in that world with any sort of following, you can definitely monetize it. You can do quite well doing it. I sold picks. I did all sorts of betting websites where I was doing content. So for me, I was doing okay on my own. And at that time I declined and kind of the rest is history. But I was just pretty much discovered through those stupid videos I used to do.
Like through your career at Barstool, I mean, you have a ton of great moments. I mean, there's the laughing video. I think you still are posting. You just did it for the Eagles, who are your hometown team. But like going through there, do you have any like memories that like you would put like top tier, like your moment at Barstool? Like what was like the best memory?
Yeah, I mean, for someone that I was never actually in the office every day, I think
Right.
I was probably the most, I guess, talked about person was never actually around. It was funny because when I left, I actually ended up being talked about more when I left than when I was there because I had always had the rivalry with Rico Bosco. And I would say the best memory I had was the Rough and Rowdy stuff. That was just super fun. Going up there, kind of walking into that place where everybody hated me at the time. And just like traveling to West Virginia, that was something I'll remember my whole life. And for me right now, that was a really important event for me because that was the last time, as many of you know, my dad died in October. We learned he had cancer a few months after that. And that was the last kind of time that like I think that was when my dad finally realized that what I did kind of worked for me in a way. I made a bunch of money in that fight.
Yeah.
It put me in front of a lot of people. And my parents haven't always, as a lot of people that do this, I don't think my parents quite understood what I was doing for a long time. But I felt like that was the first moment where I was really kind of, okay, he's going to be all right. But I would say Rough and Rowdy stuff. And then Barstool Idol was a fun time. I thought, I really kind of showed a lot of people that I was more than just kind of like a Rico back and forth kind of guy.
Right.
And that was always my challenge at Barstool, getting past that whole Rico thing and saying like, hey, I can do other things and I'm not just dependent on some person like him. But
Right.
but
Like
yeah,
I'm not dependent on a beef. Like I have some character, I have some personality. There's other shit I can do around here to like, help out like when you guys need it. I totally
absolutely.
get that.
And that was one thing that, there were just so many storylines with me and him over the years that that was just kind of the crux of me there. But as you said, there was more to me than that. But yeah, there were a lot of memories that I can't even think about, I guess.
I mean, I'd be remiss not to ask then, since we are, on the topic, what is there an origin to that beef, or was it just like, this guy's being an asshole, so let's just shut him up and talk the shit back?
So this goes back really far. I would say the first time I'd ever known about him was when he was calling into Barstool Radio. I would listen to Barstool Radio. This was like 2016, 2017. around that time, there was a guy that worked at Barstool called Light Switch Lou. A lot of people know him. They had him and Big Cat had this search for a gambling intern, they called it. And this kid, Blackjack Fletcher, won the contest. And he was a friend of mine. I've known him for years. And Rico did his normal getting jealous because there's a new guy around. And he had kind of started talking negatively about Blackjack. And as a friend, I kind of stood up for a friend, and I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, why do you act like this? And really ever since then, he was really negative towards me. I don't know of one insular moment. I don't know him. I've never met him. I didn't know anything about him. I think what I had noticed about him over the years is that anybody that really had any intelligence or knew anything about gambling that he thought maybe was a threat to him, like Blackjack or me or really anybody. And I think from what I've heard, like I've even heard like nowadays, like he doesn't like certain people that are good at college basketball stuff. Like I think he's one guy that, and I mean no ill will towards him. I have no issue with the guy. I do think he's a little sensitive towards maybe his own abilities, and maybe he is a little threatened by other people. But
Sure.
that's all that I knew about it. He never really disclosed it. And when we kind of patched things up, he still didn't really give me an option. Like he didn't say to me, "Hey, this is why I didn't like you." He never really told me. I think it more just had to do with, like with a lot of
You
people
explained
do.
it though. That was it.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you backed up Blackjack Fletcher. Done. The one time you back anybody he doesn't like, it's curtains for life. I think with him, he is a grudge guy like I would never believe. So I think right when you said that, when you said, "Oh, who the fuck are you?" whatever, that he'll never forget that, and that will be the reasoning forever. So I had it here in my questions too. I said, "Is the Rico beef done?" Which I guess it's really not fully up to you because you've always said you didn't care about it. So it's really if it's him that'll ever get over it. To be honest
Well,
with you, but
I think he is a guy who he definitely does things that I wouldn't personally do as a man. He did a lot of shit to me. And it goes further than just words. We have to remember this is the same guy who essentially paid people to attack me and my family. I mean, he did some pretty fucked up stuff, really, with the whole hype group stuff. Like that was real. That actually happened. Like he sent people to go after me to do things to me. Look, I think he's definitely probably changed. He's a little different. I've noticed. Even towards the end of my time there, we did some live streams together. We were doing basketball content. I think for me though, we never actually, I think, got to have the success that I think we may have had together just with doing certain content. But look, I wish him the best. I hope he's getting past some of the dark times that he had because I think he had some dark times, obviously throwing cans at people's heads. And yeah, I wish him the best. I don't like some of the things he does, but it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from the outside looking in, like as a fan, I guess, like I mean, on like from Frankie and our perspective, it definitely seems like there is like a little bit of a page turn there. But who knows? Because he always talks about the old dog, so the old dog's in there somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask about that. You mentioned college basketball, so you mentioned how it's like it was something that you built your following off of. When did that start? You just always loved college hoops?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a gambler. I mean, college football was one of the first things I handicapped, but yeah, I've always done college sports. It's always been my thing. And then college basketball, I had kind of a memorable season back in 2018. I think I would give out one bet a day, and I think I won like 50 units of profit that year. It was like a sick run.
Oh, really?
And I think people just I used to do streams where I would just give games out and I would go over the card each day. And I've always just had kind of like ability to know a lot about it and just retain information. And I think people liked that they could just come on and say, "Hey, what do you think about Kennesaw State, North Alabama?" And I'd give them an opinion. And they maybe didn't have the time to look into that kind of stuff, so they just went to me. And I guess people just kind of caught on after a while. But like, guys, when I tell you I've been doing this, I remember in 2009 I was doing YouTube videos. That's how long I go back doing this shit. So I've tried so many different things over the years, and I guess the one thing I've always been known for is basketball. But and I think that was one of the I remember when I started the first show that I had at Barstool, Big Men on Basketball. I was really excited about that. I remember going to Dave. He greenlit the show. He was very happy with it. And then I hear that this other show is going to happen, and it's just like it's hard to do a show where you have a direct competitor at the same company. Think about that company. That like does
Right.
Is that the
Barstool-
Titus hire you're referring to?
say that again?
Was that the Titus hire?
No.
That
This was
before then.
this would have been Barstool Bench Mob, I believe it was
Oh,
called.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was Rico's pod, right? And
Okay.
I had said to them, hey, maybe I could be like a stat guy or something, and he just wouldn't do it. And for me, it was tough because all the resources that they had for college basketball, they were putting into that, right? So
Mhm.
I was just kind of behind the eight ball, but I didn't make excuses. I did what I did, and college basketball's always been second nature to me. It's something that I'll do till I die. When I'm 80 years old, I'll be handicapped at college basketball. It's been my life. So
I noticed recently you've been putting out some soccer picks. I was following those for a bit. I don't know if those are I don't know if you do that like often or not, but you won me a little bit of money there a couple times. So how often do you put those picks out, and what got you into that?
Well, for me, Frank, I really have stopped doing a lot of public sports betting content. I think when you get to someone like me where like I just don't really get much out of doing it anymore. Like on Twitter, it's you only hear when you lose, right? And I'm just kind of at the point where I kind of have what I do and that's enough. But I've always enjoyed soccer. I've loved soccer since I was a kid. I think there are leagues where you can make a bunch of money if you kind of know what you're looking for. And I have a lot on my mind a lot of the time, but soccer is something that's on during the day a lot of the time. So it's something that I can put limited work into. I kind of know what I'm looking for, and I just pop them out. It's only certain leagues too, so it's just kind of something that I enjoy. I like soccer, so I try to have all sorts of hands in different pots. I bet the NBA, you'd never know because I don't really put it out there. It's just something that I grab. I see a number, I bet it. There's not a lot of thought behind it. So I love gambling in general. Sports betting's always been my thing.
Well, I like making money too. So if you ever want to throw the soccer picks my way, in the DMs instead of public, that's fine too.
I will. Now that I know that you like it, I'll throw you something. Maybe tomorrow I'll have something for you.
Give me one college basketball future you're watching. I mean, we're enough into the season to where who's really the top runner. I mean, I don't believe in Purdue.
You don't believe in Purdue? Well, that's interesting because I was just going to tell you they were the number one team in the country. Listen, I don't think it's a crazy thought to say you don't believe in them, though. I mean, this is what they do a lot of the time, but I think they have such a chip on their shoulder after last year losing to a 16 seed that they have improved guard play. Zach Edey is the best player in the country. I'll tell you to keep an eye on UNC. UNC's been very surprising. I didn't know that he would be this good. Defensively, they are really good. So keep an eye on Carolina. They've been really good.
Okay. So you like Purdue to do it's basically the same format that Virginia did theirs, right? They lost to a 16 seed and then they won the title the next year.
Virginia lost to Maryland Baltimore County as a team. Beat them, and they then won the tournament the next season. So I think that's very few teams have had that happen to them. So I think you have a chip on your shoulder that's quite large, and they're a really good team. So I think they'll be right there at the end. Right
back into the Barstool stuff. So I mean, your exit was very public and loud. You had Dave Portnoy go onto the rundown the next day and say that Jeff Nadeau's dead to me. Whatever all that was. So what was that process like? Like, was it like up for renewal and you threw out a number and then that was it?
It's funny. I got a message this morning about this. I still get messages. You fucking idiot. You're the dumbest person ever. But like I told you, like I don't do things just to do them. Sure. It all happened essentially. My contract was up, I want to say in August of last year. It was around mid-June. And generally at Barstool, they come to you 2 months before your contract's out. And they say, what do you want to do? So I was under the impression when I signed the contract, it was a 1-year deal. That's what Dave talked about. That's what we had set forth. Gaz comes to me and he had came to me about a month before and around the tournament, he had come to me and said, hey, The show is doing good to sit down. We're going to give you resources now, because a lot of people don't know that when you have a podcast there, a lot of the time you have to kind of put your own resources into it. And then if it performs well, they will give you a producer. They'll give you a clip guy. We had gotten to the point where we had hit the metrics 4 straight months. I had started the TikTok. The show was making money. And that's something we were talking about. He had asked me what my feeling was on coming back. And I said, look, guys, the money's right. I'm in. I like Barstool. I'm happy. It is what it is. I was a little unhappy with some of the sales things, but I knew that wasn't their thing. It wasn't Gaz's thing. He was just talking about the contract. He comes to me first week of June and says, hey, what do you want to come back? He said, do you want us to bring you a number? Do you want to bring us a number? I said, bring me a number. Now, behind the scenes, I had talked to a couple of people. I straight up asked them, if you're comfortable, what would you ask for?
Sure.
In multiple numbers. They come back to me with a number that was a little bit higher than I was being paid. I said, that's not going to work. Because again, guys, I make this very vocal to all of you and anyone that listens to this. I can go out right now and monetize what I do 4 or 5 different ways, whether it's sports, whether it's a sit down, whether it's anything. I've done it for years and I can always do it. I went back to Barstool because I wanted a platform. I wanted to grow in my job there. I wanted to be known. I wanted to do multiple things. And that's when Dave intervened and said, well, wait, hold on. This is a 2-year contract. We're going to renew, and we'll give you a slightly higher amount, but we want you to stay. Now, if you read my contract and you read what I read, there's no fucking way you would have read that and said, this is a 2-year deal with our option. It essentially read that we both had the option. I could pick if I wanted to come back and they could pick. Be that as it may, long story short, Dave contacts me and says, we have contract issues. I said, yeah, you don't want to come to my number? I will tell you, of course I asked for 200. Did I want to settle on 200? No. That was just a starting point. I thought they would come to like 150, 140, whatever, maybe 130. I would have settled on 125. Straight up. Now, they made it sound like I was really greedy and only wanted one number. But by that point, they had said this is not a negotiation. You either come back for a slightly higher amount at the end of that contract, then we can talk, or we'll let you walk. And that's that. I said, okay, I'm going to walk then. Because I knew when I left there, I could immediately go and make the amount of money that I wanted to make. A lot of people hear the words number 200 and say, oh, he wanted this, he wanted double. That was just a starting off point. That's how you negotiate. You always start high and then you come down and meet in the middle. But we never got to that point because there was never a negotiation.
Right. And you can't really strike a man that, believes he knows his own value and, he's going to stick to that value and you're not going to come back for what you believe is less than what you're worth. So, I mean, that's something I feel like a lot of people can respect and, just a small increase. And
there's a lot of people that would, look at me and say, you're crazy. But to be honest, guys, and I've never hidden this from anybody, he made the comment that I'm greedy. I've always been in the thought of this is a business. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like him, he runs a business. He ain't going to do nothing for cheaper than what he thinks he's worth. Neither am I. Now, there are a lot of people that just will collect a paycheck to say they work at Barstool. I'm not in it for that. I'm in it because I'm only able to do content for a certain period of time, and I got to do what I got to do to make enough money. Okay. It's no disrespect. It's only business for me. And also another thing that a lot of people don't realize is most of the people that have an issue with what I did, they might be in their young 20s. If they really want to work at Barstool and they would do it for any amount. I'm 34 years old. I have a house. Okay. I have a car. I have a life, and at that point, when I left Barstool, my dad was very sick. I didn't have the ability to move to Chicago. Look, if it happened 10 years ago, maybe I would have. Look, if I'm Nicky Smokes' age, I'm doing that.
Mhm.
But I'm not. I'm pushing 35. I'm not a kid anymore. I need to plan for the next 10, 15 years of my life. And we and them, they weren't willing to negotiate. And I have no ill will. I still watch Barstool. I still consume the content. Dave Portnoy is one of my heroes. I've always said that. And I'll never not say that. I have no ill will towards Dave. I I wish I would have known that they were getting out of Penn because that would have played a lot more into my decision.
It made
I
a
may
little
have,
bit more sense, right?
yeah. It also sucked in a way that I had purchased this house. It just all didn't work timing wise. I wish it could have been different. I actually really love a lot of the Chicago guys. You know, there was a time where I had considered seriously about going out there. And it looks like fun. It looks like they're having a great time, and I wish all those people the best. One person I'm really happy for is Jerry. I think a lot of people think Jerry and I don't like each other. I did a TikTok last night. I had people in the comments talking about Jerry owns you. You hate Jerry, and it's like, nah, man. Jerry and I squashed that the night it happened, the fight. And Jerry's doing really well, and I really wish him a lot of the best. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He's a guy that a lot like me gave up something, and he took a shot on himself and it worked for him. And that's what Barstool is. It's they give you the plan and you either run it and go with it or you go another way. But I wish
Yeah.
him
Yeah, Jerry's one of my favorites too, obviously because I'm a Steelers fan. But we got to get away from these puke streams he's doing on Jerry After Dark. He's got to stop puking. It's so much
well,
puke.
I think he has an idea.
Yeah,
It really worked with the golf thing. What a huge thing that was.
fucking Tom Brady. Come on now.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I saw that. I couldn't believe it. He's a guy I think you have to really be happy for. He's obviously been through a lot. One of the most regrettable things I ever did was some of the things I said to him during the fight stuff. I mean, it was looking back, it was really lowbrow, and I feel bad about it. But he's a guy who I know he has a young family. He's moved out there. And to be honest, I give guys like him a lot of credit because I would never do that for a company ever. I'm just not built like that. And I think, guys, deep down, one of the reasons I left Barstool is I'm just not cut out to work for anybody. I'm too just, I just can't do it, And I think for me, I'm happy now. I do what I do. I make my money. I do what I want, and that's where I'm happy, I guess. So for me, it worked out, and I think for all those guys, it worked out, and they'll have a lot more success than I will.
So you gave us your thoughts on Rico and Dave and Jerry. Seems like everything's good. What's your thoughts on Brandon Walker? That's really all I got left.
Well, he's another guy who I think you have to look at his career trajectory and say, wow, I remember the day they discovered him. And the reason I remember that is because that's around the same time that I had been in there. I'd been up to the office. And I remember when he was discovered, I actually knew who he was because I actually did work with my bookie at one point as well. And I still remember that stream he did. But, he's a guy that has found his way. Him and I always butted heads at times. But I'll tell you this, one of my favorite pieces of content I ever did was sitting there with him on Pick Central back when he hosted it. And I'd go up there and we'd just do an hour show and it felt like 15 minutes. We'd get into all sorts of things and it was great. Brandon, I think, is an ornery guy. I think he can get under people's skin just with his arrogance at times, but I'm the same way. So I think for him, he's just trying to cash in just like anyone else. He can't do this forever. He knows that, just like most of the people. And I think a lot of the people that work at Barstool, in 10, 20 years, it's a far different company, right? You're older. Are you going to still be working there? It's kind of in a way you have to look out for that, just like I do. I have to look out for in the future. No one's going to watch me do content, So I think you have a certain amount of time, and Brandon put his all into it, and he did it. And I have no ill will towards anybody there. I think they're all talented in their own right. Look, are there people that I'm not big fans of? Sure, but I'm sure there are people that aren't big fans of me. But most of the people there were always cool to me. And like even Erica, I saw she was leaving. Erica was always very kind to me, very nice to me. And I always say what they did for me at Rough and Rowdy, I could probably never be truly mad at Barstool. They always were the one company that gave me an opportunity. I'll tell you guys right now, I am blacklisted. I cannot work at any radio station in Philadelphia. Most companies will not hire me, but they always gave me an opportunity. So I got to give them a lot of respect for that. They were the one company to do it.
Now I've got maybe a couple more, but like, what if that window opened up again? Would you ever reconsider going back?
Listen.
I mean, it's just, hypotheticals. I'm just throwing them out,
Oh,
Jeff. That's all.
sure. Listen, I told you right now, like if let's say David would have came to me and said, "Hey, listen, Jeff, sorry how that happened. We've had 24 hours, 36 hours. What do you really want?" Guys, I'll be honest with you, and this is something I didn't tell you before. The only thing that I was truly unhappy with is that I had a show that on my own I sold ads for. I was
Mhm.
making money selling ads for it. I look 6, 8 months into the contract, they haven't sold one fucking thing. And I'm thinking to myself, what are we doing here? This show can make money. I've done it. I made money on it. I have a YouTube channel that makes money. I have a TikTok that made money. So I think for me, I just wanted really someone to get some selling done with it and help me a little bit with the clips. That's all I wanted. I didn't actually think they'd give me 200. That's what I asked for. I was willing to come down. I only wanted a little bit more. And then, in a year we'd see how it went. They told me when we're out negotiating. But no, if they came back to me and said, "Hey, listen, Jeff, we want to do this," I'm in. I have
Right.
no. I go where it makes sense for me. It's
No,
not
I
going to
mean,
happen,
it's
but
it's kind of funny you bring up the sales part of it because like I feel through the layoffs. So when they went through that big layoff, that was posted all over. That was one of Dave's like biggest pressing points is like, why do we have a whole sales floor if no one's selling? So like he even went in on that. So yeah, it totally makes sense. That's something that like I'm out here doing the work. Like, can I, give me somebody to help out?
and
Like,
one of my big knocks, guys, was when you face Dave for a new contract. If you listen to when they ripped me on the rundown, Dave Portnoy said that the show didn't make any money. That's exactly what I didn't want to happen. And it's not because of me. It's not like I can go out there and sell myself.
mhm.
They didn't sell nothing for it. Now, the show did make money because I had a YouTube channel that made money. I still make money on YouTube. But yeah, that was really my knock. And I think that is a lot of people's knocks. I know a lot of shows have mentioned the sales stuff. And I don't know if it's changed. I hope it does. I remember we had an idea to do this had never happened, but there was talk about it. We were going to do a dating show, me and
Mhm.
Tommy Smokes. It was going to be in Miami. It was going to be a big thing. And I brought the idea to them. They had signed off on it. Everybody loved the idea. I think they were going to get like Roan or somebody to host it. Dave and his girlfriend were going to be involved. And they then come to me and say, "We don't have any money." And it's like, well, how do I do this then? Because you're not selling anything. We bring you
Yeah.
ideas, nothing happens. But I think the company's a lot different now that they're away from Penn. And hopefully the sales team is better.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like, Dave's back at the helm of the pirate ship, especially now with Erica out. So, yeah, everybody better be on their shit. So I have two more for you. You spoke a little bit on it earlier. Your weight loss. You said you were hired around like 350, or like that's when you were, shooting pigs to Big Cat.
Yeah, it was
So,
it was 343. That was the highest weight I was ever at. And
right.
I remember when I got hired, the first time I got hired in March of 2020. And I know you guys remember, I mean, it's 3 years now, but almost 4 years. But the week I was hired, coronavirus happened. And I remember Dave contacted me and said, "We got to put this on hold until, whenever."
Right.
And I remember I went home. I was in New York that day. I went home and I was so tired. I looked at myself and I said, like, I got to do something about this. And I knew that I'd have like 3 months. We were inside. And I remember I went on the internet and I just started researching, what's an effective way to lose weight because I'd had trouble with it for like 5, 6, 7 years. And I just started doing it. And I remember when I got rehired at the end of 2020, I was down like 80 pounds, I remember. And I just kept doing it. And now I'm just in kind of not gaining weight mode. I'm kind of at the same weight I've been for a while. I still am out there every day. I was out there today. I'm out there tomorrow. I'm out there every day. So it's a challenge, but I had to do something about it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's something you've seen like trending with TJ Hitchens. He's lost a ton of weight, and then Frank with his walks, he's lost a ton of weight.
And I'm
It's
happy for
nothing.
Frank, and he's
Yeah.
Frank's if I could just say, Frank's a really kind guy. I don't think people realize, Frank was, I think he's made it clear, he was really unhappy in his life. He was what a court clerk. You know, he likes sports, and he's found that, like me and a lot of people, he's found the one company that works for him. And I think that's one thing about Barstool we don't think about enough is how many, and Dave talks about it, weird people they have that just work there, right? They never work anywhere else, but they work there. And, you know, Frank, I'm happy to see him losing weight. You know, he's putting years onto his life, and good for him. You know,
Yeah,
it's great.
former friend of the show. He got on. He explained that whole thing. You know, doing courtroom work during COVID from his tiny apartment with a desktop computer, basically in his kitchen. Like that's that's a different kind of struggle that you know that'll beat down just about anybody. My last question for you: you're a guy who, you know, when you see a nice rack, you'll let people know about it. So if you had to rank these racks, I'm just looking through Nancy Pelosi, Dave Portnoy, and Joey Camasta. If you could just rank those, you know, 1 to 3. These are former great rack tweets that I'm just looking through real quick.
Yeah, actually, I remember Camasta. That was at Cyber Monday. I think it was 2022. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. He was in like a gold dress.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I'll go Camasta 1, Pelosi 2, Portnoy 3. A lot of people also don't know. Fun fact about Camasta: he is the only person at Barstool that has ever seen my dick.
I think he talked about it. He said Jeff's got a hanger. You know, he's been vocal about that before.
He comes over to me one time when I'm there, and he had heard about there was a girl had used my you know member for a video, and it was a big thing in the office, and he had come over to me. He's like, let me see it. I didn't care. Showed it to him. And he had seen it. So he's a funny guy too, man. Very, very interesting character he is.
Yeah, they just did their live stream, got their YouTube subs up, him and Pat.
I saw it and subscribed. So I think it was 49,945.
Yeah, right there on the brink of 50. They don't get enough credit for what they do over Out and About, honestly. You know, it's a solid show, a couple of solid dudes. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you, Jeff. I mean, I truly appreciate you coming on and telling us, you know, your story and your path. What else do you got going on? Like, so you talk about the sit down, so is it sit down sports betting, or you know, what's made you up to today?
I'm just enjoying life, man. You know, I have shows that I do. I got to sit down. That takes up a lot of my time. You know, it's interesting. I always get people ask me, like, how do you make money now? It's like, I make money. Don't worry about it. But the sit down does pretty well for me. I still do college basketball. That takes up a lot of my time. I have a Patreon, which, you know, I have a bunch of people that are on it. Just try to be my own boss. You know, I'm pretty lucky with what I'm able to do. And I don't know that I'd want it any other way. So, you know, I appreciate you guys having me. You guys, you know, I'd always wondered, I mentioned I talked to Neil about this, and I said, you know, why is there not weekly or every once in a while a show that like puts all this stuff together from a fan standpoint and does it? And he told me, he's like, well, yeah, there's a couple guys doing it, you know, them from the Stooley Clubhouse. And I said, good, you know, that's great.
Yeah, I remember I hopped into one of your spaces shortly after we started it, and you were like, "Hey, didn't I see you started something?" I was like, "He was like, good luck with that." So I appreciate that too. You've always been a friend of Stooley's, and you know, friend of the show now. So
listen, man, I'm just any other guy. I sit here watching basketball, yelling at the TV just like anybody else. You know, I like talking to people, and you know, how could I not want to get on camera with Frankie Buka? I mean, Frankie Buka.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, well, I apologize for the nasally voice, for the fucking delay, but I'm looking for the pics in my DMs. Appreciate you being on, brother. I'm like, this is just a mess for me, just not being able to figure out when to talk and when to stop because of this delay.
Let me see if there's anything on the fly I can throw out to you right now. Holy shit! I'll tell you what. I'll get with you.
Oh, there you go.
I'll get you something.
That sounds good, Jeff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate it. The man, the myth, the legend, Nadu Crew's still live and strong. He's still out there pushing picks, pushing out Sit Down Crime Pod. Make sure you subscribe to his TikTok and follow the man, Big Man on Campus on the OLX too. So thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
It's the Barstool Break. down, go ahead and give it to me.